We're live!
Hello,
Just
hello.
like that.
Hello.
Hey, y'all. I know y'all been waiting on this one, so it is nice to be here and share this with you. I want to introduce you, and hopefully it'll be nice and quiet so we won't be disturbed by chatty little faces on here asking us questions that I can't see to read and see it.
Right.
So we'll do that, and I'm going to pay attention. But this is the infamous Gary Morgan, y'all, and y'all know him. So I just said, well, I need to know who he is. He's gonna be my neighbor, and I
Right.
got to know him and love him and appreciate his humor. That's what first made me pay attention. I went,
No pressure. No pressure.
It was the humor that I went, I need to know this brother. And so I wanted to sit down and talk. And when I heard the message that he needed to share, I went, get on, get on here.
Thank you.
And then he called me a runner, and he said, "You're running." And I went,
right.
I'm passing the baton. What do you mean? I'm like, come on, let's go. We got stuff to say.
Yeah, all this stuff is going real fast for me, but it's great. I mean, I'm loving it. So
here he is, y'all. I brought
hello.
You're Gary. He's back. He's back where he belongs on the screen, talking to you in our little black boxes. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excited.
Yeah.
So, where do we begin?
Well, yeah, you're supposed to ask the questions. I'm pretty sure. Well, lead me into this.
Yeah, I know. Gary has such a strong story, and I really want to. I like to start with the right now. Where are we right now? Why are we here right now? What do we need to talk about? And I do it this way and go: if you only get one shot to talk to the world.
Well, my one shot, really. I guess if I were to say anything to the world, it would be, this is the time to start loving yourself. This is time to start taking in the merits of your life and what you've done with your life, and how to actually fall in love with yourself, become your best friend. This world really needs some help, and we argue and fight over all of these ideas, but it's all backed by stuff that to me is, it's old, it's outdated. It's we're not living in a time anymore where this old stuff can continue to function the way it is and live in a thriving planet at the same time. And the only way to really change anything is to work on yourself. And because one person can make a great difference in the world, but at the same time, it does great wonders for the world when everybody can sort of jump on board. Yeah. And and since, my talk was really about ayahuasca, a lot of that stuff is, many people are heading off to various places to take this medicine. So
you said something at the beginning, to love ourselves.
That's right.
So that leaves us a question most of us have been working on, we think, loving ourselves, asking questions of ourselves and our realities. So it opens up a door of what haven't we done?
Well, thanks for that tough question. Well, I don't know. Everybody's an individual, and everybody's experience is unique. And so there's not one method. I mean, every method is as individual as the...
Thank you. All right. And that's where I wanted to go with this. Because it's an individual one, there's got to be ways we understand how are we doing in our love for ourselves. We check in.
Well, interestingly enough, people are always telling you. They're always telling us, but we don't actually listen to it. We don't actually absorb it. I mean, really absorbing good compliments, absorbing the finer things about yourself. It's much easier to throw things away. Now I can remember many times, when I was in some of my darkest places, and people would, "Oh, you're really amazing. You really inspire people. You do all this." It's just really easy for me to just, "Oh yeah, whatever." That's but the thing is it's time to actually start listening to the beautiful people around you, that you actually are moving, that you are
Well, beautiful people is this man. And so I need to go back and be proper interviewer and go back and get that original story. Because beauty comes the contrasts
Right.
of that polarity of it was hard as hell, the
Yeah.
way you tell your story.
Well, that's right. I mean, I didn't come from a what you would call an easy background. I mean, I seem to have chosen a very hard life, very difficult, and most of it I did to myself, to be quite honest. You know,
We can own it.
Stupidity does wonders for growth. so, and boy, have I grown. But you know, I mean, I grew up. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, outside of town, actually, outside of Flagstaff. I grew up on a farm, ranch sort of thing, lots of horses, lots of animals, lots of responsibilities. I grew up in a very violent household, which that set me off on a path of, self-loathing, for many, many years. I did not understand what love was to any capacity. And for the most part, and I think what a lot of people like to do is this hallmark version of love that seems to float out there. But actual true love is a state. True love, being connected to everything, is a state. It's not actually a feeling. It's more of I feel love for everything, but I am not really feeling. I'm just more connected. And that love is also imbibed with compassion, understanding. Really, like, I've watched what I have done with my life, and I have put myself through the ringer, going through many, many different things. I have some crazy ass stories, and I don't even know how I survived them, but yet I did. And in the end, I really reflect on what I did in my life, and that was sort of key to beginning to understand who I really was as a person. And I say, for the most part, most of life, when you come into yourself, is really about life experience. It's not necessarily all this spiritual stuff. It's not any of that stuff, really. It's about doing enough in your life where you begin to actually see that you have a body of real living underneath of you that you've not paid attention to, and for years I would compartmentalize all of the different events in my life. Well, this, I did commercial fishing. This I lived in India. This, I lived on a ranch. This, I was in the Amazon. This, I did. They were all separate stories. And until I realized that it's one whole story, just one whole complete story. And that in of itself is the great strength of it. Yeah. Because I can look across the breadth of my whole life now and like, well, holy hell, look what I've done. I mean, and I've survived this. I made it through. And believe me, when it got dark, it really got dark. And some of the hardest things I put myself through were nowhere close to the agony that went on inside.
Give me an example.
Well,
give me a dark story.
Oh, no. Well, dark stories. Well, I can remember a couple of times really sitting on the threshold of suicide. Really could not make sense of life, could not make sense of just the daily grind. And, I had a story, and my story and how it got me to such dark, dark places was no one loves me. No one loves me. I mean, yeah, sure, I've got friends, but I don't think anybody really loves me. And I spent a great deal of my life without relationships, without any of the things that other people had, and very much on my own. And the more I spent on my own, the more I would find it a curse. And the more it felt like a curse, the more I would find myself in further isolation. So I was driving myself into isolation through this ridiculous story that nobody loves me. And the only person that really didn't love me was actually me. And that was very difficult, because in order to get to that place, you really have to cross some serious issues within oneself. And myself, that story was a very hard story to break. That's, it's a hard one. Yeah. And I believe that is why most people actually end up going to Ayahuasca or going to any of the other master plant teachers, that they're hoping to figure out what is wrong with them, and that was one of the biggest questions through my whole life was, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And I know that that is an absolutely huge question among so many other people. And it's a very easy question to jump to. But the harder question is, what is right with me? What is right with me? And when you hit this place where you're looking at yourself, well, what is right? Okay, actually, that dark side is very right.
I know. Yes.
It's very right.
Thank you.
It's not a
Thank
bad
you.
thing.
Appreciate the good hair days. And don't this boy got some good hair, y'all?
Not today.
Yeah.
It's easy breezy, beautiful girl too. So,
but I have said that often. We focus on the bad hair days and we
That's
remember
right.
those, but
That's
we
right.
don't count those good hair
well,
days.
and it's true. You know that adage. You know, you can do 1,000 good things, but everyone will remember you for the one bad thing you did.
Yeah.
And boy, we love to beat ourselves up. We're
professional.
We're and that's the thing is most people do not realize what somebody else is going through on the street. I mean, that smile oftentimes is a bunch of bullshit. That smile is oftentimes hiding. And, you know, I can say in my life, many people would never have known that I was incredibly depressed, you know, except, you know, maybe my best friend, you know, she was always quick to point out, fix that, you know, like, and so,
I love this.
right, you know, and, you know, and I, you know, she's one of those people I value very, you know, I mean, greatly in my life because we all need somebody in our life to call bullshit on us.
Well, okay.
And that helped me too.
Yes. Now, he is here because he's that kind of guy. He can call you on your bullshit, and you need that kind of friend. He became that kind of friend.
Right.
But let's walk down that ayahuasca because his work is called After the Call.
The After the Call.
After the call of
because
ayahuasca
right. Well, most people, I mean, I came up with that pretty much because one of the most common things you hear in the ayahuasca world is the medicine called me. You know, and I'm not saying that it didn't.
That was
and
Valley Girl.
Right.
Okay.
And I affectionately call this whole world the land of mother and the ayahuasca tears. You know, because many people don't actually know what they're getting into.
Right.
And so. For myself, when I entered this entire world of ayahuasca, I have to say I equally was just as naive as anybody else going into it.
And what year?
I don't know. I've been tripping balls for years, girl. I don't know. It was a long time ago.
The 90s.
Yeah.
It was younger than me. I'm like, more balls even tripping.
It was in the early 2000s, I guess, is when I first started entering. Now, I have to tell you that psychedelics were not new to me. I mean, I started doing psychedelics heavily at the age of 18. I mean, I pretty much discovered them, and then after I did my first overdose of LSD first time, you know, you're like, it's not working, right? so you take more, and then you're like, oh my God, it's so working, you know. And so after that, I walked around for like about a week telling her, do you know we've been lied to? We've been lied to. Oh my God, we've been lied to. And so from that moment, I was like, I dig this. So I'm going to dig into this lie. But eventually, you know, that lie gets to a point where you don't fall over.
I know. I was like,
that's what I'm supposed to do for comedy relief. So
we will get to that.
So where was I?
LSD,
LSD overdose. First, it wasn't an overdose. I didn't die, but something did die inside of me. You know, a held belief that this was how the world was. And as soon as I went in and began to like, wait a minute, there is something going on inside of me that I had no idea could exist except perhaps in dreams. And even dreams are not nearly as tangible as what I'm actually experiencing. So from that point on, I mean, I started to do hallucinogenics a lot. And a little selfishly, but I wasn't learning anything. And I was honest with that. I wasn't learning anything. I was just tripping, having fun out in the woods, trying to find my way through whatever fanciful thing this was. And then mushrooms came along, and that changed things. I did mushrooms, and the first couple of times were lots of fun. You know, I was having a lot of fun, and then the big moment that actually occurred to me is I took these mushrooms, and you have to understand at the same time, I also had a raging drug problem. You know, I was hooked on cocaine. I did lots of meth. I was really strung out and incredibly lost. You know, I can blame it on lots of things, but that's not really where I'm at anymore. I found it all wherever I went. It all became a gift. So, you know, all of the violence against me as a young boy finally manifested in just years of agonizing pain that I didn't want to deal with. And those particular drugs really helped out. And so I was sort of an extremist when it came to drugs and came to, trying to find a way out of hell, the easiest way possible. And really no other drugs really do that. I mean, I can say honestly that cocaine is probably the greatest teacher I've ever had in terms of drug use. Well, cocaine is the thing that it will take you all the way to the edge of the cliff and jump off with you. You actually have to let go. You actually have to let go and say, I don't need this. I'm done. I want my life back. And it is from that point a huge rebuilding process if you go all the way. I mean, it really is. And I mean, we see addiction in many, many forms. And mine, for the most part, was a lot about escape and just getting away. But then when mushrooms came into my life, like I said, I did them a few times, but then I got these really interesting mushrooms of some kind I'd never seen before. They're pretty potent. And I did them, and within literally 5 minutes, it was just starting to go.
Wow.
And within 15 minutes, I was like, what the hell is going on? And the person I was doing it with, she went and sat down, and she said, Gary, can you see all that? I was like, what? She says, there are like Indians sitting all around the room.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I don't see that. But then all of a sudden I just collapsed to the ground, completely paralyzed. I could not move. And then what descended above me from wherever were 3 healers, 3, I don't know, I don't really like the word, but I will say shaman just for this particular case. So it kind of creates clarity for people. But 3 healers came down above me. And for the next 45 minutes gave me what for about what this is. Teaching me that, listen, you can go and play and you can go and have fun. But at the same time, we're trying to reveal something very, very powerful within you. There's joy, there's love, there's playfulness. And you're not recognizing any of that. You're still not seeing your connection. You're still not seeing anything.
Wow.
And
that's a little bitch slap there. Like, you can't see?
I can't see. Right.
Okay.
Like, no matter how much I did, like, you're not paying attention. You're just doing this because it's another way to just freely dance away your cares. And to a certain extent, psychedelics can be, they can definitely be.
That's how I was introduced to them. And I went,
right.
They didn't do anything for me. So
right.
I was a part of like, okay, well.
And so I was given a warning. They told me, find the sacrament, find what's sacred in this, and do not return until you do. And it really was. It really woke me up, and it actually scared me. Scared me to the core. And for 3 years, I didn't touch anything. I didn't touch any. I continued my other drugs, but then that led to a very dramatic end as well. One of my very good friends, after he and I had been partying significantly, and gone home and murdered both of his parents. And so that boom, shut me down right there. Everything stopped. Everything stopped. And I went cold turkey on everything. And it was as though the universe was trying to scare the bejesus out of me. And it really did. It really did work. It did work. And I sort of just committed myself to being a workaholic after that, because I was, you switch your addiction from one thing to another. And since I wasn't going to take any more drugs, I decided, well, none of this is really going away. So I invest myself in work. And so that actually really helped me with becoming a chef in many ways. A really good chef is because I just started dedicating every moment of my life to that passion, even though I wasn't feeling really any passion in the world. So food was an outlet. Food was a way for me to learn and to cope. And it brought out all the, you work in these high-end kitchens, and sometimes they are not very fun at all. There's a lot of inner competition. There's a lot of, so you're really trying. And it's funny how one can believe in getting a position, but they can't really believe in themselves.
Ooh,
You know,
right. Yes, the job,
right,
the title,
right,
I got there,
right, exactly. Like, you know, and
then you hate it,
and then I could feel all the confidence I could ever feel by directing it into my work. And but I would go home and I would still feel just as empty as ever, you know, and that emptiness began to expand and expand. And at some point I did enter what I call a very rough patch of my long dark night of the soul, which God knows how long that really lasted. It had a lot of deep holes that I fell in. And during one of them, you know, I was in it for about 9 months. And I struggled. It was a true war, the war of sides or something within me. One side was just get rid of yourself. You're not worth it. The other one is, please just love yourself. Please find a way.
Really a polarity fight of love and hate.
And it really was. And the love side, of course, was often like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You know, it's just, this would just be so much easier if I got out of here. You know, if I got out of here. And, you know, we see that even today. I mean, this is really, suicide is a very high number out there in the world right now.
It's a real thing.
People are taking themselves out for very similar reasons, you know.
And being American and being a military brat, I paid attention to the veterans that were, and there are more that are killing themselves every day. I forgot the numbers. It was like 22 a week, I think, were the numbers. I went and more have died now from suicide than from war.
That's right. I mean, it's
okay. This is and I respect the military because they see the world from a different perspective.
Right.
They see the facade beyond the facade of what's really going on here, and it's scary.
Well, when they see the lie, when they see the actual lie, and they're participating in a lie that they believed that they were doing something else, and now find that they're actually indentured to, you know, some other idea that has nothing to do with patriotism, and it has nothing to do with
or just getting through the day-to-day memories that won't release. The
that's
trauma that won't release.
Well, and that's all compounded. That's what happens. It just keeps compounding and compounding, and then you really figure out something. And you know, right now there are a lot of people who are coming to DMT, coming to Ayahuasca, San Pedro, all of those through this particular PTSD.
So let's talk about the process. What has changed in this journey? Because my first journey into ayahuasca was 2013. And I heard about it. I said, okay, I need to find out more information. And I researched everything I could, said I needed to talk to somebody. Somebody appeared to me and said, yes, I've had these experiences. And I went, okay, boom, 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 do enough homework, I'm ready. Had a good experience, you know, I'm like, I gotta research it.
Right.
And 6 journeys later, I've opened up that door enough. I have understood who's there talking to me.
Right.
Pachamama, thank you, sister girl, and the family. I get it, and yet it was enough to go, all right, what you want me to do with this?
Right. Well, isn't that the thing, though, is going to these particular plant teachers, you're going because you're looking to heal. And I will say, in that general term, most people have absolutely no idea what they're walking into. Now, I want to be very, very clear. There are a lot of people that go out there and they go into this because they want to expand their artistic creativity. They want to expand their awareness of something. Not everybody's going there to cure cancer or Parkinson's or any of that. And ayahuasca has shown to have great application for these healings. However, underneath all of that, one of the things that people don't recognize is, how did that cancer get there to begin with? Right? So self-loathing, self-loathing is the primary cause for all disease. And it's dis-ease with the self. If you do not love yourself, and I mean, I have looked at the amount of breast cancer and ovarian cancer in women, and looked, it's such a body image thing, you know, and look what has gone on. There's such augmentation of the body out there to feel comfortable with themselves. I mean, to the point where some women have destroyed what they even look
Yeah,
like.
they're not
I mean,
human
they
anymore.
don't look the same. And
you're going, what's wrong that they cannot see?
that's right. And so, and then they suffer from the fallout of that. And cancers, and same thing with testicular cancer and prostate cancer. You know, men are just so emotionally out of balance for the most part. I mean, that's a very general statement, not every, but a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and
we talked about that and the reasons why.
Right. And
that trauma.
Right, exactly. And so ayahuasca does actually go to address, like, okay, so you get rid of the cancer, you know, through these means. And yes, there are plenty of other plant medicines out there. But what is causing the cancer? Why does it return? Why does it do these other things? Why are you having these? And we can go and we can look at science, and we can have all these other reasons. And I'm not going to say any of those reasons are wrong. Development comes from something, right? But what was the initial catalyst to get that to start? Most of that is self-loathing. Most of that is looking at the self as a burden, you know.
I got two questions at once, and I think the first one is fast. Why? Top 3 reasons people go to ayahuasca. Why? And should maybe. And then the second question is, okay, if we can open up those doors to get those dis-ease, the loathing questions.
Right.
That's what it seems that gets exposed.
Right. Well, for the first part of that, let me, you know, I think it's rather nebulous. I think most people just want to go and get healing. And like I said, some people do go to expand their creativity. Some go to do self-exploration. There are some people actually go into the ayahuasca world who are well navigated, well versed in the world of psychedelics or entheogenics, and just want a different experience. Some people want to come and see God, you know, but for the most part, there's this healing thing that comes around it, and most people do not know what they're asking for. It's the vine of death. It's the little death. It's known as, you know, the little death. You know, the vine of death. And what that does, and what I found with myself, is and helping lots and lots of people, is it does seem to bring on this long dark night of the soul for many, many people. You know, you go into ayahuasca and you get shown something rather incredible. And each person is very individual. It is not the same thing for everybody. So the dogma that rises up around this whole ayahuasca world is actually an appropriation of the Western world once again, because that is not actually how the medicine used to be used or in its treatment of other people. And, you know, when I would ask many of the people, you know, why you've never done ayahuasca? Why? They're like, I'm not sick. I'm not out of balance. You know, only those who are out of balance go into the medicine. And in the early days, the way it was is the curandero or the taita would be the one to drink, and you would sit there and you would be examined by them in this altered state. I mean, they don't study these things since they're like 10 or 11 until you see them and they look like this old haggard man or woman sitting in front of you. You're like, oh dear, you know. And then you know, they use decades of their knowledge and wisdom to look at you. And then what their approach typically was back in the day was to have you begin a plant dieta, where you use different plants. There are many, many other plants. I mean, we have master teacher plants, we have master plants, and we also just have regular medicine. You know, and the regular medicine is just all over the place. Helps diabetes, helps all kinds of other things. The typical go-to for real health is not ayahuasca or San Pedro. That is really to open up a whole other world so that you can eventually see, once they decide. I mean, back in the day, they used to think, no, you'll go crazy, you'll go nuts if you drink this stuff, you'll lose it. But if it did get to a point where after you had spent time with them, and that was the other thing, you were required to spend a significant amount of time with them so that you could do this long work, because there's a huge integration process that goes with that whole thing. And the plant dieta, and how dieta is all set up and formed now is, I mean, I'm sorry, it's crap to me.
Well,
it's not.
Dieta, I have always understood it's like, okay, you don't, the week before you start eating right. and you clean your body,
Yeah, right, yeah,
and then you fast, and then
see,
we take the medicine. I went,
see, actually, that's not good, really, I think, to fast. I mean, and believe me, over the many, many, many years I've been doing ayahuasca, I've tested it in every fashion on my own.
Okay.
You know, yeah, listen, you know, the curandero may say one thing, but I was there to learn and explore and find my own way. And since the old schools are gone, you know, I had already spent a good, 20 years already doing fistfuls of all kinds of other hallucinogenics. So I when I finally ended up at ayahuasca, it really began to I have to say it was rather profound. And I also have to say that my first three when I drank the first three times were the only three I really ever needed. You know, it actually showed me every single day. When I look back even to this day and I think of all the stuff that I've ever done, yes, I explored a lot, I learned a lot, and I ended up working for ayahuasca, and helping in the assist of facilitating other people through their journey. And that I have a strong power to do in a group. I have a very, very good in a group setting about helping someone get to a place without forcing them or feeding them my own ideology, which is very, very difficult. I mean, a lot of people want to feed you an ideology and tell you, well, if you do this and you focus on this and la la la. That's not really my approach about it. My approach is to get you to find your own way. Your way is not my way, and how I got there is probably going to be terrifying for somebody else. So I'm not gonna ask anybody to do that, but I want them to find their own way and find within themselves. And part of this, in the old way, was you would do this plant dieta for quite some time, and then you would go back into ceremony. The taita coordinator would drink. They would look at you again, and if you had any blocks that it wasn't working and you were not moving through, and your healing was slowed for any reason, due to integration, due to whatever. I mean, everybody's an individual, so each, and a true healer operates with people as individuals. There's no one standard format for everybody. It's not Western medicine. So so when they sit there and they look at you, at some point they'll bring you in to drink so that they can lead you to the place that they see is disrupted. And over my many times, eventually I began to see these things within people and understand, oh my gosh, this is what the healer sees. And through many, many ceremonies, I would see crazy things. I mean, I saw a cuckoo clock in a woman's uterus, and so this blue light spitting above her head. And I just went over to her and she was crying and crying and crying. And I said, honey, you have all the time in the world. Just remove the clock from your uterus. And there's something, a soul wants to come in right away. And 4 months after that ceremony, she contacted me to tell me she was pregnant. She's with child. And I said, see, you once you got over your story, and I could see Venus flytraps in people, rose thorns through hearts, snakes round around people's necks. I saw really, I'm
loving the visuals that really nail the story in and where they're stuck.
Right, exactly.
The clairvoyance of seeing. And that's when you're drinking the medicine.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's clairvoyant. I just think at some point, in my work and work with medicine and willing to open and willing to go into that place and dealing with my own fear. Because really looking at so many of these other people and seeing what they had, I have to also look within myself and say, I have similar blockages that I'm also not working on. I am also not moving through. Right. And so, I'm not there just, that's it. I'm always a teacher, always a student. There's never a moment when it's separate.
Talk to me about your years in Peru.
Well, my years in Peru, and they were very, very interesting.
Okay. Very interesting.
Well, I was there with a couple of people. I don't really want to talk very much about them because
no, not the people, but you were doing medicine and you were.
Yes, I was.
Okay,
I was.
That's what I'm interested in.
Well, I went down and I was doing my own thing, and like I say, the first three really were rather profound and actually, when I finally stepped in, like I finally took hold of myself and said, it's okay to love me, is when that actually became very apparent to me that the first 3 journeys was like, it was all explained to me what was happening, you know, from the beginning where I was in this nebulous place to looking at different aspects of all the different psychedelics I'd done and why I was in a little bubble about it. Then it came to the second one where, you know, just for myself and the way that I identify it, I call it the mother. That aspect came to me, and boy, was that very, very intense, you know. And I could go through all the visuals and images, but the essential story was through that journey. She pretty much told me, listen, you prepare food, and one of the things that you do is you make these beautiful meals for other people, but then you leave work and you go and eat fast food because it's, you know. And I was trying to make an excuse for why I do that, and then it was just, stop it. When you eat death, you become death.
Okay.
And so I was, oh. And then she said, right after that, she goes, would you like to see my garden? My personal garden. And I thought, I would love that. She goes, well, only those who are clean may enter my garden. She says, can we see if you're clean? And I was, okay. And she just sticks her hand, whatever that was, the image of it was her hand going right into me, into my center, and pulling out this black stuff. And she's like, oh, smell that. And I was like, oh, well, it smells like McDonald's. And she goes, smell it again. And then I, bucket. Whoa! And then she'd reach it again. What is this? Smell this. I'm like, oh, this is such and such lye. She's like, okay, well, smell it again. And then I'd smell it, and it would suddenly trigger the memories that made me keep these stories, and I would vomit that out, and vomit that out, and vomit that out. And anyway, she says after all of this, she goes, remember, everything belongs to death. Everything. Nothing belongs to you. Everything in this universe is owned by death. It is supplied by death and returned to death. You merely use it. And while you use it, and while you get this beautiful opportunity to have this incredible experience through the most limited capacity, you know, get this through you, that no matter how limited you actually are, you have the ability to connect to everything. Everything. You are not alone. You are always loved. You are loved beyond imagining. So loved that you get to do this amazing thing. And you get to wander through this spectacular and rare garden. Now, why don't you like yourself? Why don't you love yourself? You know, you're not separate.
And she's asking.
Right. And she says, listen, maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe I won't. But if you want to come to my garden, remember, you must be clean. And at that point, I started to like feel like I did not feel well at all. Like this, I feel so bent out of shape. I've been made to look at so many things that I had actually not considered were so substantive within me. My thoughts, my emotions, and how out of bounds my emotions were. And the stories that I love to create. And all of our minds do this. All of our minds take a simple little image and begin to turn it into this huge story. And if we do this to the outside, imagine what we're doing to our own selves, because we're not even really able to see ourselves in any capacity.
No, but we are shaping our world.
That's right. You know, and when you make judgments about somebody on the outside, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me now, you know, when all the wise men of old are saying, you know, when you judge somebody else, you're really judging yourself, you know, and in the end, the person that you really dislike the most on this planet is yourself. You know,
it keeps coming back and biting us in our own ass.
It does, you know, and you know, and we in our limited capacity, and I kind of came to this idea a long time ago, is there's no need to even search for this thing, whatever this thing God is or whatever that is. There's no reason to even go search for that, because I can only see less than 1% of the light spectrum, less than 1% of the color spectrum, less than
capacity.
I mean,
Yes.
so listen, if I am that limited in this capacity and I cannot actually understand how that plant right there grows the leaves it does and does what, how can I possibly come to this idea that this God,
I'm gonna get it.
you know,
I'm
and that
gonna
this
get
judgmental bullshit thing, you know, I just like, listen, whatever's happening is happening. That's part of just let it be. Some things allow the mystery to flow.
Yes.
Allow the
That
mystery to
way.
flow, because the mystery, for me now, the mystery is actually more intriguing than wanting to know, because I know I'll never know. I'll never know anything, you know, and because I can sit here and talk with you about the same identical thing, and how you receive it is how you receive it, and they could not, and they may not be the same.
Right.
And so just there, that aspect, how do I
Yes.
know that you know what you know? And you know, right? And
right. Yes, and let me add, but wait, there is a collective consciousness.
well, there is a collective consciousness.
And then we
but-
all do wake up and start seeing the same thing
Well, maybe.
at one level.
Well, maybe.
Well, maybe.
I mean,
Don't
at this
give me
point,
that.
I mean, when you don't really even get to the point where you can acknowledge yourself as a friend, you tapping into collective consciousness is actually even more detrimental in itself. It really just feeds the ego, doesn't it? Because, I mean, how many people out there think they're Cleopatra? How many people out there think they're Marco Polo? How many people think, you know, they were reincarnated from some other thing? Well, it's not to say that they're wrong, but they can tap into the collective consciousness where that life exists, where that energy vibration actually streams through the consciousness. And if and you can tap into any life you want to. In fact, I can't say how anything is happening. There is no fact, actually. That was the wrong word. But I don't know how it operates. But all I know is that there is a stream of consciousness, and certain personal knowledge comes through that.
Yes.
And what I did find is that the vast majority of what ayahuasca or any of these other master plan teachers give you, San Pedro, whatever, peyote, whatever they give you, is really only meant for you. Once it comes out of your mouth, it becomes this dogma and bullshit, because it's not actually meant for other people. It's really meant for yourself and whatever you experience within your own universe. And that's something that we are supposed to be identifying as well, is that we are existing as a universe unto ourselves.
Well, yes. And as it is an individual message, the story, though, is still one that we go, well, we all still need to do that. We all still need to love ourselves, face our shadows. So there is a collective,
Right.
I don't want to call it spank in the butt, but it feels like, wake up. Why are you here? This is my garden. Can you see what you were doing?
Well, that's because
and we're collectively doing that.
Well, because the planet itself is also, you know, high consciousness, and we are connected to that. And when the planet, like a mother knows when its child is in pain.
Yes.
Well, this mother also knows that her children are in pain, right?
And thanks, Ma.
You know, and I mean, the thing is one of the messages why this whole mother idea is really getting out there through ayahuasca is, I mean, it is this idea that the mother is trying to nurture, trying to help, trying to show you, all right, when you stick your finger in the light plug, what happens? You know, you know, and this is what's happening. You know, our hurt is, I mean, the world is reflective of a metaphor of what's going on within each of us. You know, I mean, this, we are on the brink of suicide.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in many, many ways, we are on the brink of suicide, a collective suicide.
Yes.
And we see it happening within the individual as well.
Yes.
You know, warriors are falling all the time now, all the time. I mean, and so this pain, this agony is very, very real. It's very real. And of course, one of the ways that I personally combat it is humor. You know, I'm very irreverent. I'm very blasphemous. I am one of those people who will take the most horrible subject and find the joke in it. Because most of the time, if you can start laughing at the most destructive thing in your life that causes so much pain that you can't get over your story, it's a great way to become objective by laughing at that very thing and taking its power. Because we take our lives too seriously. I mean, we are on a serious journey, but we should not be taking it seriously. It's all a game. You know, and that is, for one thing, that many people will tell you in that go through these master plant experiences, ayahuasca, San Pedro, the like, they'll tell you that they're told it's all a game. You know, you're taking it all too seriously.
Right.
You know, you can't do anything wrong. You know, you really
Right.
can't do anything
Right.
wrong. I mean,
That's a hard one to go, okay?
right,
And even with decision making.
right.
And we had a conversation last night. He's like, I'm going with the flow. And I'm like, I'm a planner. What do you mean you're going with the flow?
Right.
And I'm like, it doesn't help me plan. So I just went, well, I'll plan and toss and see if he flows and
Right.
then do it that way.
And I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, so I'm having fun.
Yes, he does. And because he does, and I feel we've gotten a little scattered, and I want to go back to what do we need to pay attention to now? If we have come through and we have opened up these doors and go, oh,
well, you've got to start paying attention to your what work you have to be doing. I mean, that's the thing, is that, like, there's no miraculous healing here. There's a lot of work that has to be done, personal discipline. One of the biggest things that I did to get over my actual mental illness and the stories that I created that were destroying me was to stop making those stories, catch them. And I would sit for 2 hours a day and let my mind start to wander. And then at some point, grab hold of one of those thoughts and begin to break it down until it came to the original thought. And I call it my just daily yoga of, you know, containing my mental virus. Because first of all, we don't even know where most of these thoughts come from. They just appear and pass, right? So for myself, when I realized, and it's just something that's very simple, you're looking out across the road, you see some person, very overweight, physically deformed, messy hair, walking with a limp. And that in itself is enough for somebody to already start creating a story. Just creating, they've never met that person, they've never said a word to that person, but yet here's this story being conjured. Fear, this thing about, oh, there's a difference, you know, and then that person for some reason comes over and pays you an immense compliment. I love what you're wearing today. I love it. You look fantastic in it.
Humbling.
Well, now this person has to sit and, like, there's this incongruity between the judgment or the story.
Right.
Now, which one do we keep?
Right.
Which one do we keep? Do we let go of that silly story because we don't know anything about that person and just simply accept the fact that they made a compliment? But then in the end, what usually happens is that person does not know how to receive a compliment. Right? So, and the compliment is being given by something that they've already determined to, they don't like that. And they don't like that, not because it's them, but they don't like that because it shows something inside of them that is there as well.
That's the hard part. You know, you see something you don't like, and you think it's the opposite of where you're at.
Right.
And so why is that so hard? Why do we see it as something we don't like?
Well, you know, most people actually don't realize that the real teachers in their lives are all around them, who they deal with every day.
Right.
So they want to go to gurus instead of, they want to go to shaman. They want to go to all these different things rather than actually paying attention to the people who are in their daily lives, which are pulling on their hearts, their emotional body, the ones actually creating the thing that you need to go and get therapy for.
Right.
So, right. So, you know, when you're in this process, I don't really look at ever going to find somebody who has all this great wisdom. That wisdom has been placed around me. I have put myself in the midst of the people who are reflecting. So when I'm not dealing very well with somebody and I'm getting all upset about how my needs need to be met.
I know that thing. I've seen that face. I'm like, we ain't happy right now. We gonna fix it, though. We gonna fix it.
Ain't no help for my face. But you know, it's now I really look at people like when I am disrupted by something in the field, you know, I look at it and I pay attention to what was it that upset me, you know, and then why am I upset over that? Do I care enough? You know, do I care enough to?
I'm getting questions, but keep talking.
Okay. do I care enough really in the process to put that much energy into it? And also, why am I allowing something outside of myself to have that much force on me? And it's about, and this is what the real discipline is. This is the discipline, is actually recognizing that in the moment that you're doing it. In the moment, I mean, yes, you can have, you can have 20/20 by looking back. But the real work gets done when you catch yourself in the moment.
Yes.
When you catch yourself actually acting like an imbecile, and instead of, oh, I don't want to look ridiculous here, so you put up a whole other front, to deflect any of that. But the thing is it's better to recognize that you have this thing. Oh, I do this all the time. This is a pattern. This is a pattern, and this pattern has got me into so much trouble. This pattern has actually got me fired from every job.
Catching yourself.
Right. Catching yourself.
I like thinking about it's a trigger. Anything that comes up that you get that,
right.
It's a gift.
And it's okay.
To let you see it.
It's okay to step away. It's okay to step away for a moment when you don't know what's happening and all you know is you're having a triggered response. Boom. Well, that's normal. When somebody delivers something to you, that is when somebody's raging on you because of something, well, it's very easy to get triggered. And the first thing you want to do is respond to that. However, when you're in a state of constant discipline and self-recognition, when that person does that, it's best at that moment, like, I so want to say something, but you have to take that moment, or I take that moment, and all right, this person is not having a good day.
Right.
This person is, something's up.
Something's up.
So
I'm catching it.
I start to, I mean, they are vomiting a heavy emotional load on me, which is very difficult. It's a nice outfit, right? So when they're doing that, you can't help but receive it. But when it's received, how you transmute it is the real power. Instead of lashing back, like, why are you yelling at me? Take that moment and like, all right, whoa, that was really heavy. That was really heavy. And I'm sorry you're having a very bad day at this moment. And listen, I hear you, and I know you're mad at me. I'll do my best to make sure that doesn't happen again. But listen, I love you. Come on.
It's an interesting wake-up call when we get energy thrown at us that way. And I agree. And I did Gary's charts, and we have some similarities in our charts. And the resonant mirror is that similar, where we use our lives as a mirror reflection for others.
That's right.
And so I've always said, you like me, you don't, and it's like I'm just a mirror.
You do have to understand though, also that the vast majority of people are not looking at other people as mirrors.
No.
I mean, really, it comes to when you're getting to a place where you're in your life having to do real adulting. Like, I mean, this comes down to adulting. And I'll tell you what, my life experience more than anything else is what helped me realize when to keep my mouth shut, when to actually approach the situation from a different angle. Because I remember what happened when I approached it from the very angle that I want to take at this moment. Like, I want to punch you, and I know where they got me before.
It didn't. That ain't gonna work.
It
took me 55 to finally wake up to
that.
That.
And so, in this moment, it's really about learning personal discipline. Stop believing your story. Realize that you are the center, and the only center you will ever have from beginning to end. No one will go the entire distance with you. No one will ever go. So are you going to be your enemy the rest of your life? Are you going to let people keep dumping on you? Are you going to let people keep your story alive for you because it's the story you feed? I say often, don't identify with your illness. Identify with your wellness. And when somebody pulls something outside of you that reflects this deep illness that you have, remember that they're actually doing that in some way to get you to look at it. Now, you can go all berserk. There's nothing that says you can't. But don't complain about your sucky life. If you're not going to do the work, and the reason we don't like each other is because we have been told over and over and over, this is different. This is different. So for me, it's really the other part about breaking down the thoughts in the mind are also about stop labeling everything.
Well, isn't it not just that it's different, it's good, it's bad?
Well, see, but that's a label as well. And for me, it's about breaking down labels. Because nothing's good, nothing's bad. Everything just simply is. And I look at nature clearly. to show that
Yeah.
nature is not necessarily kind.
Yes.
Nature doesn't necessarily have your best interest in mind.
You-
And, you know, when you're looking at a praying mantis and the only way for the male to orgasm and procreate is to have his head eaten off, you can tell right there that nature isn't really your friend. You know.
Oh, I love it. Hug a tree, though. Keep hugging the tree. Y'all.
Oh, well, I'm saying hug trees, but there's some out there that have spines on them. They don't want hugs.
They don't want
They don't want hugs.
Leave them the fuck alone.
Right. I mean, look and
roses.
respect. But see, a rose doesn't want you to really be grabbing it.
No.
I mean, that's why we condition them to not grow roses or thorns on the roses, so you could grab one. But you know, I mean, these are all about their protection and everything at the same time. But there's a recognition of life forms, and we debate all the time about how we are so advanced because of our language and thumbs. But you know, because plants don't seem to have a brain or a central nervous system, it's okay that it's, you know, they take a beneath level to screaming pig and all this other stuff, you know. So I mean, there is no difference. All life is equal. All life is equal. All life is connected. And humans are the last ones here. So usually the kindergartner is not the one that knows the most about everything else. I tend to look at trees, which have, you know, about a 2.6 billion year lifespan on this planet. And they now can convert light into food. I mean, we are dependent on trees and other plants to survive. Without them, we don't have a chance here. So it's basically by their permission that we get to be here and live and thrive. But we do not participate with nature.
No. Well, you know, and as Americans, I was raised with manifest destiny. This belief that humans conquer the earth, and particularly a man is there to conquer the earth. And so we have taken this, we're better superiority than the mother that bore us.
Yeah, but that's just all ego.
It's definitely ego. And so now pulling back from that, we go, well, mother will let you die.
But you know, the thing about it is, you know, I've come to realize, and I know everyone has their various opinions about it, and, you know, they're more than welcome to have them. But my personal feeling on it is the body is the ego. The body is not you. You are not your body. Your body is actually operated by billions and billions and billions of microorganisms that are not you, that have their own cell signature. That is not you. That level of diversity within the body actually has a better connection chemically to your brain than you do. So when you become addicted to things,
dumber. Okay.
but it's true. I mean, you are not who you think you are.
Sure.
You know, the only reason that you think this is because you're looking through it. But your body is its own organism entirely. It is not you.
We're looking out, not in.
That's right. We don't really have the capacity to see ourselves. You know, and I would say, and I've watched through a number of ceremonies. What kind of happens to a body when somebody steps out of it and leaves that body in the room, and it just turns into a horny goat, and it turns into a nasty little, you know, like, oh my God, we're gonna have to tie this one up. Because this is like craziness, you know, and taking hours to get them back into their body. And the whole time they can, like, I can see myself, but I cannot stop myself. And I'm like, well, I hope you learn something. Dang it.
I got a question here. This is my brother's asking, Aquaterra. Do you believe in NDEs, near-death experience?
Oh, yeah. I've actually had a couple myself. Because,
I'm like,
you know, no, I didn't come back with any special powers or anything, which... Yeah, I know. I'm going to go back and see if I can't get them. But
they're on sale.
Happens to other people.
I know. Where's all
no, but I do actually believe in near death. But I believe that those experiences, very much like DMT, you know, they seem to have a commonality, but yet they're unique and individual. You know, there's some people that have had smoked DMT and have also had near-death experience and said it was very, very similar. You know, how you enter into this
another space.
Yeah, and you move through this channel, you move into, and then you move out, and it seems that there is consciousness outside of that is not your consciousness, that is aware of you. You know, and I felt that with DMT, and with my own my own near-death experience was that and this is what actually got me into all my actual medicine, not the psychedelics, but my actual plant medicines. was my appendix had ruptured. Now, back in the early 90s, can't remember, but my appendix had been ruptured for 4 days.
Oh.
And when I finally got to the hospital by a dear friend of mine who found me, I couldn't walk and rushed me to the hospital. I went in for emergency surgery, and I had peritonitis. I had several different funguses. I had to really be hosed out and cleaned out.
Ooh.
And even after I had woken up,
Like McDonald's.
maybe no. I mean, well, I started a different life at that point. I would imagine it was heavy toxic drug use and lots of stuff that brought me to a lot of that. I was not good to my body, so I did kind of want out. But it was very interesting, the very moment that you get this opportunity to go out, and what happened to me is, I believe the night that I actually did die, death came. And I remember sitting, and I would not look at that figure of death that had come to me.
Oh.
I knew that the moment I looked, I would have to go. And I said, I don't want to go. And I remember clearly hearing this distinctive voice saying, "You have begged your entire life to go, and at this very moment, you're saying no?
Snap.
Who are you?"
Ooh.
I was like, "I don't know." And that's the point. I don't know. I don't know. And I am scared to death to do this.
Scared to death.
To do this. And said, "Well, that's very interesting." Said, "Well, let me ask you some questions and see if you're worthy to stay." And I said, I know. And I was like,
live, y'all.
Well, that was just.
You had to ask. Thank God. There's a test.
It was just for me.
Question one.
I don't say it's a test for everybody. Nobody.
Okay.
It was just what happened to me. Like, why do you want to stay? Why do you want to stay? And I did some basic reviews in my life, like, why are you so angry? And if you believe in something greater, like there's something at that point, I still had the God concept and was still kind of deeply rooted in Christianity. So those concepts and ideas were the ones that were used to sort of bring forth,
Sure.
what my damage was really. Like, why do you want to stay now? After you begged, after you want out, this is an opportunity for you to end your pain. You don't have to do this anymore. You can come home and you can redesign this. And I said, no, I have to give this a try. I feel like there's something that I just did not understand and still don't understand. And then at some point, and it's really long and complicated, it was a very deep and involved dream, which hopefully one day I write, I've been in the process of writing all these stories. So one day it will be in book form so people can actually read the whole story. But at some point, death.
I'm gonna get them started on it early, y'all. Don't worry.
She's a runner. So I said, or Death said to me, "All right, you can live, but from now on, you don't have the same plan. Whatever you thought it was, now you're just on your own to be. You don't get what everybody else gets.
Ooh.
You are no longer contracted to anything.
Oh.
Go figure this out. But I will tell you this, if for one moment you stop living, I will take you faster than you can say your name."
Snap.
And I was, deal.
Okay.
And just before I sort of woke up in the hospital, is when, oh my God, I did get to, shit. And this really hurts. But I felt the pain and all that. But the last thing, was before I woke up, just sort of leaned over and was like, this is going to be very painful. And when I thought when the moment I woke up, like, oh my God, it's my body. But in hindsight, I now know, oh, it was the whole journey. Because from that point on, it was as though everything in my life picked up step, and it went from one event to one event to one event to one event. It just kept unfolding, and it did not stop until I finally had acquired enough knowledge and information I can make myself insane. And
Congratulations! I can make myself insane. That's
Right. Well, at some point, everybody seeks for something, and they'll try this. They'll try this. I mean, how many different people have we all been in one lifetime? I mean, if you're in your 20s, you haven't been very many people yet, but you will be. I mean, at this point, when I look at myself at 50, I'm in my 50s.
Congratulations. You made it that far.
I'm well into my 50s.
Yes.
So, but I found, I have some great stories, and I went and lived some incredible lives as very different people. I went through my Christian stage, I went through my ranching stage, I went through my commercial fisherman stage, I went through my hippie stage, I went through my festival stage, I went through so many different stages and had so many different experiences with so many different people that, at some point it does sort of kind of pile up. Like, okay, who am I, and what really are my best talents, and what do I use, and how much of what I'm holding on to is my own bullshit? And believe me, we have way more bullshit in boxes than we actually have stuff you need to use in your kitchen, right?
I was afraid you say that. The
right.
Shadows.
Right. I mean,
for a reason. Right?
So, I would say that my near-death experience did come about for me to set about on a really incredible journey. And from that point on, that journey was alone. And even if I went with somebody, I quickly ended up alone to do it by myself. And much of the stuff I experienced from early on did not begin to make sense until my late 40s. When it was all just like, what is going on here? But then I threaded through all of that, because I did it all alone. My other stupid, ridiculous story that I'm not loved, and that I'm meant to walk alone, that I'm going to always be alone, and no one wants me. And actually, and one of the things I remember Ayahuasca saying to me very clearly, will you please do yourself a favor and expand on your idea of what is love and how it loves you and how you love it? You're very, very limited. Love is not between one person and another person.
Yeah.
That is infatuation, and that is all romanticized. And if somebody can drag it out for 50 years, then let them.
Lucky them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's their gig. It's their journey.
Yeah.
But that's not what actual love is. Because if you're truly going to love, then you'll find that it becomes something else entirely.
Very much.
And so
you talked about that laughter, that humor of the dark side, and releasing that.
That's right.
That's getting into the deep love of self.
That is, because I really, I have to look at how ridiculous I am much of the time. I'm a human like anybody else, and whatever this stupid thing enlightenment is, I don't know what that is. I'll never know what that is. In fact, I don't even know who I am until I'm dead. Right? Because I know what I can do, but I won't know who I am until I'm dead, because at that moment then I'm leaving, and my effect on the world has been, I'm done. My effect on the world physically is now done. Whatever I have left for the world, that is for them to determine who I am.
I got a question. What intention do you want to leave in the world? Or some would say legacy, but let's say, what are you here to?
I'm just here to be medicine. I'm here to help people on an individual basis through whatever situation. I mean, if you have diabetes, I can help you. If you have cancer, I can help you. If you have mental illness, I can help you. I'm not a Western doctor. I'm not one of the, but I have had my own life experience, and I've come through it. I'm alive, and I love myself more than anything in the world now. I am my best friend, and then Nancy is my next best friend. So, hey Nancy. And, but, that's how it works for me, is like, I come first now in my life. And how I gauge things now is, if it were to say intention at all, before I would just wander into the world. I would wander into everything that was out there and have the experience and then deal with it later, right? Now I'm not doing that. Now I'm moving with actual intention and focus through conscious living, and knowing that these steps do actually lead somewhere. And if you're not paying attention to where they're going, well, oftentimes you don't know that you're going to hit a wall.
Yeah.
But remember, when you hit that wall is to remind you, there's a wall.
That's right. Back up.
I mean, sometimes a tree is just a tree,
Right.
right? So a wall sometimes is just a wall. And but when that happens, we oftentimes will become self-defeatist. And I used to do this. You know, like I come up against another wall. The only difference now is that when I come up against a wall, I don't beat myself up for it.
So let me ask this. Did the medicine, and when you describe yourself as medicine, and I'm like, what do you mean you can help with cancer? What do you mean you can help with this?
Well, I just know I've studied.
Medicine.
I have now studied over 25 years on the many varied plants through the Southwest. Studied many in the Amazon, and I continue to try to study as many plants as I possibly can. There are many plants out there. In fact, Western medicine derives the vast majority of all of its medicine from plants.
Sure.
It's an extract,
Right.
you know, and I tend to believe that whole plant many times is better. Well, just an example, coca leaves and cocaine. All right. When you take coca leaves as an entire plant, well, it has all the other things in it that make sure that that doesn't become addictive. Right. But when you extract, and when you extract the one thing out of it that gives the potency, well, that's actually what shuts down the little thing in the brain that says, well, if you're going to supply it on your own, supply it on your own. You know, and so there's a chemical dependency as well as an emotional dependency. So when we look at all this stuff, I look at the gamut of it, the spread of it, and diet actually is probably paramount to, you know, to anything, you know. Let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food, you know, Hippocrates. I mean, it's a pretty, that goes way back. But, you know, most modern doctors now, they don't really talk about diet. They don't talk about any of that. And as I say, your gut biome has greater communication to your brain chemically than you do. So if you are overridden with sugar, you are overridden with all kinds of chemicals that your body can't deal with, your system becomes addicted to those things. When yeast, fungus, and mold take over, they keep growing. Yeah, and they actually tell the brain what they want.
Exactly. And
so
they take control.
And so no matter how many times when you're sitting there and like, I don't want that piece of cake, but everything inside of you is, get that cake, right?
Said the baker.
Well, yeah, I get you coming and going. I make you sick with my goodies and then I heal you. So I don't do actually any healing. And let me be very clear about this. I'm not, healer is just a word. I'm more of a conduit. I'm more of a conduit between you and the information you need to know. I will walk with you. I will not carry any of your burden. In fact, I tell many people, and this really snaps them too, because they understand how serious I am when I say this. And I say this with all seriousness. Your pain is your own pain. I could give a shit how much pain you're in. I'm compassionate for you, and I want to help you out of this situation, but I am not going to carry any of your pain. You acquired this, you will let it go. And in the end, what I do is then when they see the results of what's going on, that's when I can empower them and really say, listen, you're just doing the simple little things I've asked daily of you to do. You're doing the discipline. You're getting up in the morning and you're going out for that morning walk to the corner and coming back. You're the one who stopped drinking sodas. You're the one who stopped buying donuts every day. I didn't do that. I didn't do any of that. You did it. That's your power right there. Is you said you weren't going to do it and you did it.
You kept your word.
That's right. To yourself. Exactly. You are healing yourself. All I'm doing is showing you what it was that brought you to this place. That
the mirror. That's what the Mayan does.
What brought you to this place where every day, you know. And then also the other big thing that I do work with is chronic pain, helping wean a number of elderly people off of the many medications, because many of them actually don't have anything wrong with them. They initially suffered pain, but then they were given drug after drug. I mean, one to counter another, then this to counter all of that. And then by the time they're done with their 24 pills in the day, they're sitting like a zombie in their chair because they don't know if they're coming or going. And most of those are very addictive. So it takes a long time to slowly wean everyone off of those.
So when ayahuasca opens that door for them to look at something, And where do people get stuck? Where are they having problems?
Mostly in the visions. Mostly in the visions. Most people take the vision to be this accurate thing. And it's a show. Oh, I just saw my ancestors. Well, you may be, but did you? You know, the real message that ayahuasca or any of these other plant teachers, it's put into your heart because it doesn't come with words. It doesn't come with thoughts. And most people understand the download of these plants. At some point, you get this tremendous download, and that download is not going into your head. That download is going into your heart. That download, and I've heard this over and over, and even my own experience, I woke up and the first thing I think I was just hugely downloaded. Like, is that possible? You know, where is that USB port? Where, But I did. I mean, I felt very like it was all new knowledge in me somehow, but it was not accessible until I got over myself. You know, and most of it, we take our visions. Visions are just simply catalysts. And one thing about these plant medicines is the psychedelic effect is the side effect of a medicine that you're taking. It's just a side effect. You know, when you take aspirin and your pain goes away, that does not mean that what's causing the pain went away.
No.
The side effect is you're just not having pain at this moment. But if you have a toothache and you take something for that pain and you don't have a toothache, well, 5 hours later, guess what's back? So that is the thing, is don't get trapped in the vision of it. The vision is merely a catalyst, and it also operates very much like a dream state. So when you are looking into this dream state, how do you interpret that? And yes, we find many beings within ourselves that come forward. They're all part of a greater consciousness.
Let's talk about those beings that come forward within us, because Aqua was asking about reincarnation, and I'm going, but there's this multi-dimensional universe.
Right.
So there's past and there is current.
Well, this is just how I personally look at it. I don't expect anybody to believe anything I say. You know, I mean, do your own thing. I don't care. It's me. I'm going to say what I want to say. But the way I look at it is all time, everything is happening at once. You are everybody, everything. You're experiencing every single aspect of this immediately. Everything happens in the now. That's the only time life actually happens, is in the now. It's not happening 10 minutes from now. It's not happening 10 minutes ago. That happened. We have no idea if we're going to make it the next 10 minutes, right? So everything happens in the now. You can only make your decisions in the now. So this is where I come from with everything that I do, is that who gives a crap what's happening next month? Send it as send it as an interest,
right?
But play everything that's going to get you there every moment by moment by moment by moment. And I mean, I will tell, you know, when somebody says, "Hey, do you want to do something in February?" I will put it in my consideration list, but I have no idea if I'll even be alive in February.
I've asked them that too.
You know,
looking on me,
right? And like, I want to live right now. I mean, all I know is right now I have a coffee cake I have to get done. You know, and and that's where I'm centering all my focus, energy, and joy, is in that moment, not trying to imagine what my joy will be.
Okay, but not imagine what your joy could be, but a term I've learned from the younger generation: future truth. I may not be in the financial state.
Is that a thing?
Yes. I may not want to be in the financial state I am in, right? And so, but my future truth is I put myself in a space of financial consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I mean, you can definitely put yourself, but you know, if you don't actually believe in yourself, and that thing that you're just saying is coming out of your head,
empty affirmation.
Right. I mean, that is you might as well throw straw around. Go, I made gold. You know, it's not working. You know, your real intention is when it actually goes into your heart and you begin to truly listen to yourself. And that future, whatever it is that you're talking about, can only be attained by living in the very moment, because each moment that you live is when you make the decision of what direction you're going to go in, right? So I mean, if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, do you want to go to this party?" la 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 la, it's going to be a blast. Well, if you're listening to your gut, and the first thing your gut says, I don't think that's a good idea, but you listen to your head and go, I love to party, right? So you go out, you go to the party, and you find out soon enough you should have really listened to your guts, because the party you went to was for 10-year-olds. You're all drinking Kool-Aid and you're wiping noses and all. Oh, this is not a party. This is not a party. So I'm just saying, and expectation. And that's part of what one of our big problems is. We place so much expectation on ourselves and others, and especially expectation of others to meet our need. No one ever needs to meet your need. Only you need to meet your need. And that's what the universe provides. Only what you need, never what you want. And always a close approximation, but I'm always disappointed. Oh, wow, this is like a generic candy bar. But it's exactly what you need.
Yes.
It's just not colored the way you colored it, right? So that's it, and when we supply expectation to everything, then we're easily disappointed. And how many times have I told you I don't have expectations? I don't expect anything.
Exactly, he does that, and yet he knows, and I know his work is to help you deal with your own.
Right. Exactly.
So tell me,
and I don't have an expectation of other people. Like if you come to me and you want healing, I mean, you have to do it.
Right.
I'm not.
But you are still a guide and making me look at it.
Right. Exactly. And at some point, if I see that you don't want to do the work, then I go on to the next person who does. Right. And then when you run up to me and like, why aren't you helping me anymore? Well, you're not helping yourself. And I told you, I'm not carrying any of that crap for you. Nobody carried it for me.
So that's what's working with you is like,
right.
No one carried it for me, but
I'm walking with you the whole time, right up until I see that you don't want to walk anywhere, that you want to sit down and take back the burden and peel through it and start looking through all your stuff and making the excuse. Well, exactly. And that's what I leave you with. Clearly you want to be comfortable with the mess that you live in.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with that at all. However, I don't have time to sit in your mess.
Right.
So
sleeping and shit. Yeah.
Right. Take your time, do what you need. And if I swing around again and you're ready, let's do it. But if you're not ready, I'm certainly not going to hang out and wait for you.
Y'all, we have the sun in our face, and I'm just going to move it so we can enjoy that. And
it burns. It burns.
Scoot over and let me get closer. How about that? We got that light slicing. I knew that would happen in the afternoon, but I didn't. I still wanted to keep the pretty. So I want y'all to see my brother.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, but we're good. Okay. So what his heart has been speaking about is about opening up time and space to work with individuals.
Right. I mean, right now, and one of the things that I really wanted to focus on in this actual interview was the integration process that should be taking place after one goes to do the big event, because nobody knows what they're actually You can study all you want to. You can think you know the ins and outs of everything, but the moment that thing wakes up inside of you, you're like, what the hell have I just done?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is not anything. I read people's visions, but I didn't know, because their vision is not your vision.
Right.
And the other thing that I want to remind people is that, your intention work is all based, or your intervention work is based on the original intention. And what many people don't really understand is that the moment you decided to go and do one of these master plan teachers, that is where your intention stems from. So when you get to one of these retreat centers, or you get to a place where this is, they're doing ayahuasca and they ask you, set forth your intention, and that's bullshit. It's bullshit, because your intention is already inside your heart. It's not.
All right. Yep.
It's already there, and when you enter the medicine, you begin to slowly realize that what you asked in your head is not being addressed. What's usually in your heart is what's being addressed. Is, why doesn't anybody love me? Why am I so alone? Why can't I do this? Why don't I know what's going on? Well, for me personally, I mean, I finally came to understand, that it's the mystery of that for me. And like, I don't have to know anymore. I mean, I just sit there and I watch a flower bloom and love every minute of it and love what it attracts, love what it does. I personally don't need to know how that flower came to be. I know that I need to keep it alive, keep it loved and appreciated, and really take that smaller moment to realize that something in its daily activity is so sublime and so perfect. And that I am that very same thing. I am sublime. Yeah. I am perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not perfect because I can draw a straight line. That's not what makes me perfect. What makes me perfect is that I have the ability to experience and feel, and it comes with a mixed bag of everything. If you're not willing to go to the dark, you will never understand the light. There's nothing in the light. That is a vapid space of standing there and going, and nothing's happening there. Your tools are in the dark. Your tools are the unmanageable things within you. Your anger, your anger, your frustration, your power of love, your power of giving. If you don't know how to give well, then sometimes it comes across as selfishness. Well, listen, I gave them this thing and then they're not using it. And now, well, is that really giving, or is that tool just went seriously wrong? Right? You're not a giver. You are expecting something in return for giving, and that's not giving.
Yeah.
That is something else entirely. Do you notice me? Do you notice me?
Right.
I was there when no one else was. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit, right? So really, it's your finer tools. Anger is a big one.
Oof.
Anger is a huge one. Most times anger burns the entire forest when it comes out of somebody. But anger is one of the mightier tools. I mean, there are a lot of representations of the great masters in the past who had anger. And what they did is they went straight for the very thing that was causing the disruption, not take everybody out because they had no way of commanding that. And I use command purposefully over control. We have no control over anything in the universe. Nothing. But you have command over this tiny little vessel to make it through the waves. A captain does not stand on the end of the boat and scream at the ocean to stop. Stop being stormy, I command it. Well, that doesn't work. All you can do is be on that little boat and maneuver it through the high waves, maneuver it through the wind, maneuver it, and just hope you know your skill well enough to get to the other side and you don't kill everybody, right? So
balls back in our court.
That's right. And that's where it should always be, is that we should be self-responsible in every aspect of ourselves. Self-responsible for our emotions, self-responsible for our reactions to those emotions.
That's a big one.
You know, self-responsible to take care of our basic need, and responsible to what is screaming within us.
To be heard.
To be heard. And that's brilliant right there, is because I say most of the time when somebody's putting something outside of their mouth, and be careful when you're teaching, and believe me, right here, as I'm saying all this stuff, I'm very aware of what I'm doing, is that the vast majority of whatever's coming out of my mouth is not meant for another person. It is meant for me. I'm trying to hear myself. I'm doing my damnedest to hear myself say the very thing I have to go and do. But then afterwards, if I'm not really listening to me, I'm just, did you get all that? Did you get all that? That's going to make your life so much better. Ta-ta for now. You know, and we missed the whole point of what was really, really going on. That's how the student-teacher relationship works. You cannot even be alone without being student-teacher.
Right.
So, you know, you're always
and flipping in those roles.
That's right. That's right.
I found with myself, I would talk and I'd have to listen to my own words to hear the message for myself.
Right.
And I'm talking to somebody else, and I'm like, how does that work?
Well, how many times have we actually said, we should record you so you can hear what you're saying?
Yes.
Because you clearly cannot hear what you're saying. And what you're saying is, okay, we're going to get a tape recorder and record that, because that's ridiculous.
Well, why I'm doing this.
Right.
It's the act of speaking that manifests the reality that we can see it if we
And instead of taking command of our own lives, we want to take control of the world around us,
Right.
you know, and manipulate and do all these other little things. And listen, there's a place for this life, you know. I'm not saying that any of those things are wrong, but it's when you do it with a certain intent, you know, that it actually begins to cause the problems. You know, we know what it's like dealing with children. You know, you sometimes have to use a manipulative thing to get the child to respond. But at the same time, if you continue that manipulation until they're in their 18, into their late teens, then you create a little bit of a monster, and you create, you know, and by that time you've set in motion a lot of the things that they actually have to go out and unlearn. Right. And most of life is unlearning.
All right, so that's really kind of the heart of what you're doing.
That's right. And through the integration process, I'm helping you unlearn your personal dogma, your personal structure, your personal story. Right. Everybody has a story, but you don't know what your actual story is. You really don't. None of us do. Like my story, my time in India has returned to me with a different story repeatedly, year after year. The story at first appeared to me as is not the story it is today. Yeah. That story has had so many different versions of itself in the exact same context. Like none of the events changed, but how I now look back at those events has changed, and it's changed the story entirely. Instead of being what at one time I thought was, you know, the worst experience of my life, a bunch of liars in the world. Oh, India's great. No, it's challenging on every level. But then when I realized, oh, right, I know why I went there, is because that was actually the very first place I could see myself outside of myself and realize that all the acceptance, all the love, all the tolerance, all the understanding went right out the window the moment I was taken out of my normal environment. Right? When I wasn't around the people who reinforced that, then, and I went into a place where logic was turned on its head and nobody knew what I was talking about. And I'm throwing temper tantrums in the middle of the street and smacking cows and, you know, being irreverent as I am, you know, and you know, walking down the street and thinking I'm going to go see a guru. And then I look at them and I'm like, what? I can do that. I've already been doing that for years. I just wore clothes. Oh. You know, so you know, like there were a lot of eye openers for me, and it really showed me how much I didn't know. And India was the great eraser. You know, it just took it all away.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm finally connecting the strings with that, and you said it there with the eraser, and it's really the unlearning of our program.
That's right.
And that is it's. Now I hate to use this term because it'll slap me as soon as I say it, but it still is a hand holding. It's the hand holding of, can you see this? Is not real.
Well, I'll tell you what, there is a certain amount of hand holding about it. But listen, when a doctor is checking you out and looking at you and has to tell you something, you know, and well, sometimes they have bedside manner, and sometimes they do take it. Yeah. We have a long journey ahead of us, hon.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be tough. You have a 1 in 6 chance of survival.
Oh yeah.
I'm terribly sorry, but we can beat this. We can beat this. What are you gonna do with that? Are you going to look at my hand and go, I'm going to walk with you? Or like, you're going to go home and cry your eyes out and think, this is it. This is over. This is the end.
Funny how you can't hear them no matter what they say.
That's right.
You hear what you hear.
Right. You hear 1 in 6 chance.
Right.
And after that, it's, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. You know, I need to prepare. Well, that's not what they said at all.
No.
What they said is this is going to be difficult. And that's what I do. I tell you, that's how I hold your hand. This is going to be difficult, and I'm going to walk with you through this. And when you hit your foot on that big stone, I'm going to, oh my God. Well, let's tend to the wound and, you know, immediate tend to the wound. And then let's navigate a little bit here.
So let's talk about some of the conditions people are experiencing after opening the ayahuasca door, and they're struggling with.
One of the biggest things that I find is it seems to be like a year to a year and a half afterwards, after they've gone in and ripped the veil off their face and like, oh my gosh, what is this? They start to enter, like, what they go through several different processes. I think one of them is they decide they have to go back and sell everything and go back to the jungle and become a shaman. I'm a shaman now.
I'm gonna do this right, y'all. I'm sorry. I gotta do it this way. I still have sun in your. Okay, we're gonna do it. All right, we're getting there.
Okay.
The sun. Ah! Oh, well, you don't need to see me. You need to see him. So just do it like that.
Oh, now I'm really. Oh no.
Like just unplug. Keep talking.
So, what was I saying?
About why the categories they get stuck in.
Oh yeah. Well, what happens is people down the road after a little while start to begin to really experience their deeper emotional place. What's going on inside. They've duped themselves into believing that they're automatically healed. They saw a bunch of visions and stuff like that, and that they're healed and then they're going to get better. What they don't realize is that they are going to get better, but in order to get better, you have to go to the place within yourself that keeps you from getting better, right? And most self-sabotage comes from self-loathing or the lack of belief in oneself. So this is what happens outside. Now, there are some people who deal with these master plan teachers swimmingly. Like they go out and they begin to thrive afterwards, and you don't really see any of that notice. And many times those are the people that actually come forward to show themselves, because they're doing so well. Look at what the medicine did for me. But a lot of people are actually going into a dark place. They're going into a place where there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstanding. They're trying to figure out how that vision means something to them in their life without actually paying attention to the events happening in the life and how they are making them manifest, right? Yeah. So that's what you need to look at. It's not about picking up, selling everything and going off and then continuing to drink until you have a breakthrough and calling yourself something that you're not, which is very dangerous. And right now, you can go to Iquitos, you can go anywhere and you can find more fake people doing this stuff than the real people. In fact, the real people have kind of dug in and gone in a little deeper, back away. If you want to find them, that's up to you. And you can find them. But the ones that don't really have your interest in mind are right there. Right there. Hey,
$9.99.
Yeah, you want to do this ayahuasca? I got something going tonight. And those people don't know to ask, well, what's in it? Where did you get it? Did you make it? Is this with a family? Is this with, why am I now living in your house for a whole week? Why is that happening? And people really have to pay attention to when they enter this. And now you can read about all the fakirs. You can read about all that stuff going on in the street and make well-informed decisions based on that. But you cannot make a well-informed decision based on what is revealed when you go through the medicine.
Is it a place now, as I think about why do we need the medicine now?
Well, that's a good question, because I don't know that anybody needs the medicine. I don't think anybody needs it. In fact, I feel the vast majority of this gold rush to ayahuasca has all been about having a DMT experience. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Most people call it healing and use that as justification to get there. I'm not saying that they don't need it, but the reason they're going is not that's why they don't know what happens when it comes back. They go in to take a real medicine. This is a real medicine.
Yeah.
And so when you're going in and you're like, well, I'm going to go in for healing, and it's all this kind of nebulous thing. And the one thing that's been riding in your heart for a long, long time, well, that's what ayahuasca wants to address. It's called the heart of ayahuasca as well. It's the vine of death. It's the death of the soul. Has all these things, but it's also the heart of ayahuasca. The heart of ayahuasca. That message is placed within the heart, and that does not come with words. That does not come with feelings. That comes with understanding and discipline and full acceptance to get over your own thing. Well, your story. I'm not going to say ego, because a lot of people seem to think there's an ego death, and there is not really an ego death. What is actually transpiring is, and that's why I say the body is the ego. It is not you. What has to happen from you is focus. Focus and discipline. Override the body. Realize the body is a vehicle.
Right.
You can override it.
Yes.
The best way to override the body is through good diet, is through good temperament, is through enjoying yourself personally. You know, if you're not going to sit around and enjoy yourself, and you're not going to be your friend in your alone time, you know, and many people cannot be alone. Many people have to plug into something. Many have, you know, stare at something. They cannot be alone for more than 4 hours without starting to feel the basic effects of breakdown.
That, oh, let's start with that. That's a good test. How you doing?
Right. How are you doing?
I mean, 4 hours by yourself?
I would say 4 hours is to sit by yourself for at least 4 hours, and you watch yourself begin to become unnerved, fidgety. Yes. I mean, you do that for 10 months, and you watch what happens.
Right.
You know, you are not fidgety anymore. You are on the verge of suicide. You are freaking out because your head now is so unhinged. The things that it wants to tell you, the things it wants you to believe. But that's just your head. That's just everything that wants its own need met. You are in command.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not. And this is why many things become, you know, tricky to deal with. And so when it does come to the individual person with their specific need, I deal with the individual person on their specific need. I don't have a high platform or a program of such to say, well, this is this, this is this, this is this, because that really doesn't work. I have to go in to really listen to the individual and listen to what they're saying, because that's how I parse out the little bits of their story, and I bring it in and I'm like, okay, now let's spread out these key moments in your story where you did this, where you said, but I can't do that because, well, let's look at that. You know, there are lots of things in the past I said I can't do either, but I mean, didn't I just recently say I couldn't make a tres leches brownie because it didn't exist?
Right.
And what did I do?
You made one.
I made one.
A very good one, too.
Yeah, but I don't recommend it. It's diabetic. So, but the thing is, you know, we put up these little blocks, and instead of facing them as challenges, and we just throw up our hands, you know, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. But how many times have you done that and actually did it? And you did it even when you didn't like yourself. You did it by beating yourself up, and you still got through it. Can you imagine how much better it is when you actually take the time to enjoy yourself in the process? Like, yeah, this totally sucks, but I'm so entertaining on the inside. I'm so this, I'm so that for myself, not for the rest of you, but for myself, that I can actually spend an entire day gardening, never plug in one thing in my head, and never utter a word.
Being in that
very moment. Because there's nothing. I mean, that's what causes your dysfunction many times, is being too far in the future, or being too far in the past, or conjuring in that moment stories that are not real.
That seems to be the problem with the now, because the conjuring of the story, it doesn't matter if it's past or future, if it's not in the dirt in your hands right now.
But that story that you're conjuring about the past isn't accurate.
No.
That story that you're conjuring about the future is not accurate. It has no... Because even how you saw the past is not how 4 other people saw the past.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, we have, you know, we talk about abortion, we talk about gun issues, we talk about this. How many people out there honestly believe that those things, guns are great, abortion bad? You know, how many, and you cannot change their mind. No. That's their mindset about it. But that's a choice.
Yeah, that's a choice.
And by, you know, so our stories are choices for us to continue to have justification for our victimization, you know.
Or let's flip it. So what are we supposed to do with our stories?
Stop believing them.
And then what do we replace?
Well, that's the real story.
Okay. And we have to find our own real story.
Well, you don't find it. It's a discovery within yourself of who you are. You are your story from beginning to end. There is no other story.
Yes.
You know, and how you are living your life and how you look at it. Look at your strengths. Look at what you've been through. I mean, there are women out there, men out there, men have gone through war, women have gone through domestic violence, all this stuff. And through all of this, they took care of kids, they took care of families, they did this, they did this, they did this, the whole time in this inner struggle, in this inner thing. But their actual actions are showing they have the capacity to do this very, very well, but they believe their story so much that
they believe the negative of their story.
that's right. They don't believe the positive of their story. And the positive of that story is very hard to see, because when you're in pain, it's hard to see that you're being strong for enduring your own pain. Because what is it we really want? We want someone to come and hug us and tell us everything's going to be okay. And that is a lie. We can hug you, but I can't tell you it's going to be okay until you make it okay.
Ooh, snap. Okay. This is not going to be okay yet.
That's right. But I'll give you a big hug and I say, listen, I'm walking this thing with you. I know I don't know what you're going through, but I know pain is pain. Pain is pain is pain is pain. And it doesn't matter if you spent your life being beaten by your father or you lived in a household where your mother ignored you and there was no violence. Pain is pain. And you receive that in a certain way. And as you live your life and as you unfold and receive, because your brain is a receiver, you know, and it wants to process what it receives. And that's actually where we need to stop. Receive the information, see it, but then let it all go, because you're going to develop, we are all going to develop a story out of that that is not necessarily accurate. You know,
Okay.
and so it's good to analyze, but then make sure that in your own process, you don't take your thoughts so seriously. Like, take that moment to step back and like, oh my gosh, I really took that way too seriously. Like, I'm all upset with this person now because they said the one thing I did not want to hear, but it was kind of maybe the thing I needed to hear. And then when I sit back and like, they're absolutely right. I really, you know, it's true. It's true. And you have to admit to yourself your own failings. There's no such thing really as failing. It's admitting to yours. I mean, the only way to get, as I was telling somebody not too long ago, the only way to become a master chef is to ruin more food than you ever make. Right? Is I have ruined more food than I have probably ever made in some way, because it took me that long to learn how to master it. And how many times did I have my own chef come behind me and like, we're making food, not crap, and throw it in the trash and tell me, start over. I have 10 minutes before dinner service. I can't do this. You better do it. You better do it.
Food is that nice, bring it home right now kind of in the reality.
And you find yourself in emergent. I mean, this is why food was great for me. The kitchen world was great for me, because many times I was left standing there in the midst of saying, I can't do it.
Right.
While actually I had a deadline, and my respect for that chef was, better get that on the table like now. And so inside I'm like, I can't do it. And I'm actually doing it the whole time, not paying attention to the fact that I am doing it. I'm telling myself, I can't get this out in time. And then you set the plate down and the chef looks at you.
Okay, let's go back to those voices that was the no over and over and over. Is that the program? Is that the
what
story?
Program?
I can't do it.
Well, oftentimes it's what we say to ourselves, that we don't believe in ourselves enough to do it. We have to start looking at our own personal strengths, right? I mean, listen, if we stop and we look at all the things that we did in our own anguish, and then actually realize that we could be a friend to ourselves instead, and stop filling space with worry, stop filling space with anxiety from one moment to the next. Who gives a shit what's going to happen with the bank? There's nothing you can do about it. If the bank tells you we have to kick you out, well, you can waste all that time worrying about that eventual thing coming. Or you can spend all that time and value what you have in that moment and use that as a way to be a catalyst. Listen, I believe in myself a lot. I'm not going to let this organization here, this corporation or whatever, feed me this line and tell me how disempowered I am because they have this over me. Well, if you're self-defeatist, you're going to let the bank win.
Yes.
If you look at yourself as your friend and how I need to take care of myself, and how by taking care of myself actually takes care of others, that's also very, very important.
We're back to the beginning. Self-love.
Right. Self-love. It's all about self-love.
I have let this go almost 2 hours, which is why the sun is in our faces. Because I knew I could get that little window in, because you were just that kind of guy that we got to go deep with.
And it's still very scattered.
It's still very scattered,
But-
and I'm just like, it's a complex life we live.
Right. And it really is. I mean, maybe we can sit at another time and focus on more specific.
We're gonna do it again.
But much more a specific direction. Right now, it's just sort of a general overthrow or overthrow. You can see where my heart's really at. Overthrow in my general overthrow of the world. No, I don't care. But in the general overview, I mean, there's just so much in this context. And as I say, like, I flow organically, and I really only listen to the universe. The universe is the only one that I actually communicate with, and in true, I listen to others and establish communication through that listening. But with the mother of all this consciousness of this thing, I don't know what we're doing. All I know is that I have one foot here and the rest of me is pulling from there. And when the universe says go here, I go. And it does not mean that when I arrive there, I like what I was given.
Well, how you like it now? You're here.
Right, exactly. I don't even believe me. She's a runner. She dragged me out of here. I didn't really want to.
I did.
Yeah.
Look at this, y'all. Look at this light, this story.
Well, the light is
for a reason.
Yeah,
for
right.
a reason.
Right. And I mean, hopefully,
Shine the light on it.
but I'm, and I think, like you say, it's time to sort of step out there. It's time to really help some people. Especially, my focus is really on those who've gone into these plant medicines and have come out and really need strong integration. Really need somebody to actually help them understand that, all right, it's not always the visions. They're catalysts. They're this. They're that. They're not wrong. They're not false. But they don't belong outside of you. By you expressing your vision to somebody else and making it a dogma, making it something that everybody else has to follow, that is ego.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not listening to what you were told.
Right.
I was told this, and now I'm your great teacher. Well, no, you were told that because you need to go out and do that, not go and tell other people. And then when you put yourself in the position, you put yourself in the position of opening your mouth and screaming at yourself to do the very thing that the medicine asked you to do. But now I'm a guru, I'm a shaman, I'm a teacher, I'm a la 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 la. And I don't claim to be any of those things. I am not a shaman. I am not any of those things. I just simply live my life in the moment. And I know that I have the capacity to help with medicine in many different ranges. But above and beyond that, I am just an everyday guy. I'm just living in the world, experiencing it in the same emotional template as everybody else. And how I receive that and how I learn is my own business. But if I can live through example and I can show other people how manifesting this particular idea helps the overall general picture, people learn through example, not by you telling them anything.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I don't tell you how to do anything is because you're not going to listen to me anyway. You're going to figure it out, right? So all I can do is the people who really need somebody to walk with them, I am more than willing to walk through the valley of death with them and help them find their own way out.
Yeah.
I'm never going to open the door for you, and I'm never going to push you out that door.
No, but you help them deal with the door.
That's right.
In front of them.
I show them the way to find that within themselves.
Well, we have done it, y'all. We have.
Hey, now the sun's going low.
Sun's going down. We can have a calmer conversation.
Right, yeah.
But we need to do it again. And one of the things I thought was really important with this brother was to share the depth of his thinking and dealing with the individual needs of your own emotional honesty.
That's right. You have to be honest with yourself.
Honesty.
First step in loving yourself is being honest with yourself.
It's radical honesty, and I appreciate that more every day. And we are in the days of we need to pay attention.
We do need to be
every day.
paying attention, you know what I mean? We're not going and doing these medicines for nothing.
No, no, no.
You know, I mean, this
You
call in the
open
world.
door now,
Yes,
you
this
gotta
call
do
in the
it.
world,
Yeah.
when you say
Yeah.
the medicine called me, well, I'm going to say there was a call, but now what
What you
happens
gonna do?
after the call?
That's right.
After the call, what are you going to do? Are you going to take it back to your community and spread that love and show that beauty
Mhm.
and that connectedness? Or are you going to run back off into the jungle and be a shaman?
Well, like, is that a bad thing, being a shaman?
Well, the way it's being done, yes.
Okay, right. It's not about the money. The medicine is another teacher, not a wealth teacher, but another teacher.
Yeah. The wealth
So-
of medicine is the enriching of the heart.
Yeah, not the pocket. If you're doing it right, it seems that way.
Well, I'm not saying that you have to starve to death
No.
at all, but you know, if you are truly in the medicine for the medicine, you know, and you are truly here to help somebody, you know that just flows organically. And I don't have any particular thing to tell any individual as to how it needs to be done. I don't know you. I don't know what you've been through. It's only when we compile that information where I'm like, did you know that you've been saying this? Did you know that you're acting like this? Do you know that you're doing this? Do you know that you're eating
It's your
this?
mirror.
You know,
Mirror.
you're eating this, and by eating this, you're overstimulating this gland in your brain.
Right, right.
That
It gets so biological and basic.
But it is. It's complex. It's everything
It is
together.
everything,
You know,
but-
it's all of it together. But you
need
know, you
that.
look at nature and it operates
Sure,
on its own without
sure.
without
And
any
it's
of
not
it.
always pretty how it operates, but
That's
it
right.
happens.
That's right.
Well, I can only recommend them as you want somebody radically in your face to be there and to correct you on your shit and help you see it so that you can get over
You're
it.
not correcting more, help you see what you're
Help
doing.
you see. It's the shadow.
You're not wrong.
No.
You're just confused.
We all get that every
Right.
time or two. That's when we need friends, and that's what help is for.
That's right.
So we will do this again because
Yeah.
we have specific things we want to talk about. And I said, Gary, you need to get on camera yourself, baby, and which is why I dragged him here. So you know, we stumbled and fumbled and played with the light and did what we needed to do. But I wanted you to hear him and reflect on just the mirror. And it's funny. I feel like we are two mirrors that use the same tools to go,
Right.
okay, can you see?
Right.
So we want to see better. And I think you're right. We talked about how do we sit and how do we look at each other. And I
Right.
think it is better if we look at each other and so
Right.
and just be our mirrors for yourself.
Right.
So that we can help you. And so thank you for taking the time. It's probably the longest interview I've ever done, 2 hours. I'm like, ooh. So
It's just because I can't stop talking.
we love him for that. Say something. Say something, brother. We need to hear what we need to
Well,
hear
I do
right
love
now.
you all, and really,
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you. Oh, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very
coming. And well, share it with your friends. Like, do, follow Gary.
and
I'll
I'll
put
get
his
some more
link.
information up at some point. Like I say, I'm
Soon, I'll
just
be
coming
on it.
into all of this, so
I'm working on it.
she dragged me out of the woods. I was standing there minding my own business.
You don't listen to the man. You don't tell that lie. So,
It's a total lie.
he was speaking to the universe for
Right.
someone to come in and help him, and I
Right,
showed
that
up.
is true.
So I said, "Oh, that's what I do. So let's do that and let's get it right."
And then
And we will.
yeah.
That's what we're here to do is get it right because
Right.
we came here for we're sticking around again longer
Right.
to do this, and
Right.
so it's here to help you. So we will let you know. I'll do it here, so you'll pay attention. Follow me, follow him. We'll share it and we'll get it out to y'all. So namaste, y'all.
Take care, all. Love you.
That was harder than we thought.
That was a little, but you know.